love books, and they love me. I get them free at the library. I read them once. I read them twice. Library books are oh so nice. Hi, friends. When I was in the first grade, my teacher had been all over the world teaching boys and girls how to speak English when they weren't English speakers to start with. One of the places that she'd been to teach was a place called China, and she learned all about the Chinese and their custom and their culture. So when she came back to the United States and was my first grade teacher, she shared with us this book called The Five Chinese Brothers by Claire Hewitt Bishop and Kurt Wise. And I loved it then, and I want to share it with you today. There's the brothers right there. They all look the same, don't they? Here's our title page. The Five Chinese Brothers by Claire Hewitt Bishop and Kurt Wise. Penguin Young Readers Group is the publisher, and it was published in 1938. Once upon a time, there were five Chinese brothers, and they all looked exactly alike. Oh, it started with once upon a time. That's like fairy tales. They lived with their mother in a little house not far from the sea. There they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they do look all the same. The first Chinese brother could swallow the sea. The second Chinese brother had an iron neck. The third Chinese brother could stretch and stretch and stretch his legs. The fourth Chinese brother could not be burned, and the fifth Chinese brother could not hold his breath indefinitely. That means he could hold his breath indefinitely. That means he could hold his breath forever. So 5 brothers, all with a different talent. Every morning, the first Chinese brother would go fishing, and whatever the weather, he would come back to the village with beautiful and rare fish which he had caught and could sell at the market for a very good price. One day, as he was leaving the marketplace, a little boy stopped him and asked him if he could go fishing with him. No, it could not be done, said the first Chinese brother. But the little boy begged, and finally the first Chinese brother consented. That means he said it was okay. Under one condition, he said, and that is that you shall obey me promptly. Yes, yes, the little boy promised. So see, he promised he would obey him right away, whatever he said. Early next morning, the first Chinese brother and the little boy went down to the beach. Remember, said the first Chinese brother, you must obey me promptly. When I make a sign for you to come back, you must come at once. Yes, yes, the little boy promised. Then the first Chinese brother swallowed the sea. Can you imagine that? Swallowing up the whole bit of ocean water, the whole sea. Look at the fish that are just laying there for the birds and anybody else to come pick up. And all the fish were left high and dry at the bottom of the sea, and all the treasures of the sea lay uncovered. The little boy was delighted. He ran here and there, stuffing his pockets with strange pebbles, extraordinary shells, and fantastic algae. So see, there's the first Chinese brother. He's holding all that water in his mouth. And the little boy is out here picking up stuff that he finds, all the treasures. Now, near the shore, the first Chinese brother gathered some fish while he kept holding the sea in his mouth. Presently he grew tired. It was very hard to hold the sea. So he made a sign with his hand for the little boy to come back. The little boy saw him, but paid no attention. Oh no. You're supposed to mind grown-ups when they ask you to do something. The first Chinese brother made great movements with his arms, and that meant come back. But did the little boy care? Not a bit, and he ran further away. Then the first Chinese brother felt the sea swelling inside him, and he made desperate gestures to call the little boy back. But the little boy made faces at him and fled as fast as he could. Oh, he's being naughty. He's not minding at all. The first Chinese brother held the sea until he thought he was going to burst. All of a sudden, the sea forced its way out of his mouth, went back to its bed, and the little boy disappeared. That makes me think we should always mind when grown-ups tell us something, because it's usually for our very good, the very best things for us. When the first Chinese brother returned to the village alone, he was arrested, put in prison, tried, and condemned to have his head cut off. On the morning of the execution, he said to the judge, "Your Honor, will you allow me to go and bid my mother goodbye?" "It is only fair," said the judge. So the first Chinese brother went home, and the second Chinese brother came back in his place. Do you see a plan they're hatching? I think something's going to be tricky. All the people were assembled on the village square to witness the execution. The executioner took his sword and struck a mighty blow. Do you remember what the second brother had? Do you remember? Let's see. But the second Chinese brother got up and smiled. He was the one with the iron neck, and they simply could not cut his head off. Everybody was angry, and they decided that he should be drowned. What do you think is going to happen next? Do you think brother number 3 is coming? Oh, but what can brother number 3 do? On the morning of the execution, the second Chinese brother said to the judge, "Your Honor, will you allow me to go and bid my mother goodbye?" "It is only fair," said the judge. So the second Chinese brother went home, and the third Chinese brother came back in his place. He was pushed on a boat, which made for the open sea. When they went far out in the ocean, the third Chinese brother was thrown overboard. Remember what his talent was. I have to turn the book this way for this one. Look at him. There he is. Remember, he could stretch his legs up very high. But he began to stretch and stretch and stretch his legs way down to the bottom of the sea. And all the time, his smiling face was bobbing up and down on the crest of the waves. He simply could not be drowned. Everybody was very angry, and they all decided that he should be burned. On the morning of the execution, the third Chinese brother said to the judge, "Your Honor, will you allow me to go home and bid my mother goodbye?" "It is only fair," said the judge. So the third Chinese brother went home, and the fourth Chinese brother came back in his place. He was tied up to a stake. Fire was set to it, and all the people stood around watching it. In the midst of the flames, they heard him say, "This is quite pleasant." "Bring some more wood," the people cried. The fire roared higher. Now it is quite comfortable," said the fourth Chinese brother, for he was the one who could not be burned. Everybody was getting more and more angry every minute, and they all decided to smother him. No. See, this all started because that little boy didn't mind. On the morning of the execution, the fourth Chinese brother said to the judge, and we know what he's going to say, don't we? Your Honor, will you allow me to go and bid my mother goodbye? It is only fair, said the judge. So the fourth Chinese brother went home, and the fifth Chinese brother came back in his place. A large brick oven had been built on the village square, and it had been all stuffed with whipped cream. The fifth Chinese brother was shoved into the oven right in the middle of the cream. The door was shut tight, and everybody sat around and waited. They're trying to smother him with whipped cream. They were not going to be tricked again, so they stayed there all night and even a little after dawn, just to make sure. Do you think the brother's still in there? You think he's still breathing? I think so. Then they opened the door and pulled him out, and he shook himself and said, "My, that was a good sleep." Everybody stared open-mouthed and round-eyed, but the judge stepped forward and said, "We have tried to get rid of you in every possible way, and somehow it cannot be done. It must be that you are innocent." "Yes, yes," shouted all the people. So they let him go, and he went home. Because he was innocent, wasn't he? He was the little boy that made the mistake. And the five Chinese brothers and their mother all lived together happily for many years. Now, I think this book would not have happened like this if it had been where the brothers didn't look exactly alike. Do you? I also think that with all their different talents, that helped too. I hope you enjoyed this book about the five Chinese brothers.